Hi everybody, welcome back to your Daily Dose at Home. My name is Lauren and I'm part of the visitor engagement team here at the Calgary Zoo. Today you have witnessed something incredible. You got to see a species go back into the wild with the translocation of northern leopard frog egg masses back into reintroduction sites in British Columbia. I just used a really interesting word. Did you catch that? Translocation. What does that mean? Well, conservation translocation is the big scientific word that very simply means moving an animal from one place to another for the purposes of conservation and saving that species. Today we're actually going to explore some different types of conservation translocations that we do here at the Calgary Zoo. Did you know that the Calgary Zoo participates in the International Union of Conservation of Nature's Reintroduction Specialist Panel? That's a big word, that's a whole lot! But what that means is that there are amazing experts here at the zoo in terms of moving animals around back into the wild to save them from extinction. And northern leopard frogs are no exception to that. There are a few different kinds of conservation translocations, depending on whether or not you're moving an animal back to where it has historically lived or starting a new population somewhere else. And in a minute here, I'll get to why we might do that. But let's start talking about why we move an animal back to their historic range. It's really important for an ecosystem, for a habitat to be complete. And when one piece of the puzzle isn't there, it makes things off balance. We explored that a little bit when we talked about trophic cascades in the wolf daily dose at home. So every piece of an ecosystem is important, and having an animal go back to its historic range is a big part of that. Sometimes an animal has completely disappeared from its historic range. And a good example of that is swift fox, which Dr. Axel talked a little bit about earlier on a Daily Dose, where they were completely gone from Canada. We use the word extirpated. It means they have disappeared completely. So when we're putting an animal back in the wild, we call that a reintroduction because they're gone when we're reintroducing them. Sometimes a population's numbers have just gotten very, very small. So we want to boost them. We call that a reinforcement. An example of that in our conservation programs is the Vancouver Island Marmot program, where we breed Vancouver Island marmots to reinforce their population back on Vancouver Island. Those are the two most common kinds of conservation translocations that the Calgary Zoo is participating in right now. There are also ones where we are moving a species somewhere it hasn't lived before. Right now we don't have a program like that, but we might in the future. So let's learn a little bit about them. One of the things we can do is called assisted colonization. And we do that when an animal's habitat is essentially gone. So when a species is facing extinction because its natural wild habitat has completely disappeared, you can try to reestablish a population maybe somewhere else that has a similar type of habitat to that species' home. The other type of conservation translocation, where a species is going to a new habitat, is something called an ecological replacement, which can happen when a species has gone extinct from our planet, but there's another species that plays a similar ecological role, and you can try to reintroduce that species into an ecosystem to try to restore the balance. Those four different kinds of conservation translocations simply boil down to moving animals to do what is best to save them from extinction. Now, we have some animals that are here in our care at the Calgary Zoo as part of breeding programs. So we consider those translocations to go from human care to the wild. There can also be something really cool called wild to wild. And what that means is that that animal has not been born and bred in human care. So a great example of that here at the Calgary Zoo is the Fisher program that we've learned a little bit about. Wild fishers are moved from Alberta, where they're doing pretty well, into the Cascade Range of Washington State, where they have disappeared. All of these different types of conservation knowledge come together to save species from extinction, which is our ultimate goal. Thank you so much for taking this deeper dive with me into the science of conservation translocations. Enjoy your activity PDF, and we'll catch you on the next Daily Dose at home.